Yep.
This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. If you want to keep your browsing history private, if you want to obfuscate yourself from Google and Facebook and some of the things we were just talking about, one of the best ways to do that is with a VPN like PureVPN. And right now, if you sign up for a 5-year plan, you can get it for $1.65 a month, which is way lower than the $10.95 a month, which is retail, which is a really great deal. And it's expiring in just a little while, so definitely check that out. One of the things that's important is that in addition to hiding your browsing history, you can also report that you're somewhere else, so you can use Hulu when you're away. If you're using a service where you can get your local news when you're just out of town, you can still sign in and be able to do all those things. And to get that deal, you can go to pilchpoint.live/purevpn. Now, before we get started here, because I know we now have people who are listening only, and that count is going up. If you are listening only and you would like to see some of the things that Avram is about to show, you can always go to pilchpoint.live and see the video from this conversation. And with that, Avram, what have you got for us tonight?
Okay, I will try to narrate for everyone for this show and tell. So I don't know about you, but one of the most important tech skills I ever learned was how to use the VLOOKUP function in Excel. In fact, I'm going to go on a limb and say that my job before this one, I think the last 3 or 4 years, the only reason I still was working there, that they didn't get rid of me, was because I could do VLOOKUP and nobody else could. Maybe that's a little bit of exaggeration, but anyway, what VLOOKUP does, and the reason I mentioned this is and VLOOKUP has been around a long time. It is the third most popular formula used in Excel. And by the way, VLOOKUP also exists in Google Sheets and other Excel compatible things like LibreOffice. And what it does is it matches up two disparate pieces of data from two different spreadsheets or two different tabs in the same spreadsheet. So let's say, for example, you had two sheets, and one has a list of employee names and employee IDs. And then somewhere else you had a file or a sheet with employee names and their email addresses. You could use the one common field, let's say the name, and then you could bring all the data together by having it search. Or, another thing that I use this for a lot is looking at getting data about articles that we've written. So let's say we had a list of like 100 articles that we put up this week, and I want to see how much traffic they got. I can take the list of URLs, and then I can download a giant data dump from Google Analytics, which will give me like 5,000 URLs worth of data, but then I can have it use VLOOKUP to match up the URLs I want with their traffic data.
So
now,
it's a
why
so
am I
it's
saying
a
this when this
so it's a spreadsheet version of a SQL join.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if anyone has used databases and you've used a join where you found one piece of common data between two different data tables, that is what VLOOKUP does. So VLOOKUP has been around a long time. It's a lovely function, but now, as of this week, Microsoft has rolled out for Excel a feature meant to replace VLOOKUP called XLOOKUP. So if you have a list of all of your X's and you have a list of all of their phone numbers, you can match them up. I'm kidding. So you can so XLOOKUP works similarly to VLOOKUP, but it has a few advantages, such as that it uses wildcards. So let's say you don't have an exact match.
Okay.
It can find things with a similar to what you put in. It can find things that are the next largest or the next smallest from what you're searching for, and it allows you to control what the cell will say if you have it if it doesn't find anything, what the not found message is. So let me try and demonstrate this real quick. Um, I'm going to share my screen here. Hold on. I'll move this over. Okay. Share my okay. So, if you see over here, I've got I've got a sample spreadsheet here. These are all fake people. If a real person exists with these names, it's a coincidence. Because I downloaded this data from a site called Mockaroo, that gives you mock-up data. So I divided into two tabs: employee IDs and addresses. Right, and on the address field we have the person's name, address, email, and IP. But here we have their employee ID. So let's say I wanted to make these were my employees, and I wanted to make sure that I combine these two pieces of data. How am I going to do it? So what you do is you type equal, you go into the cell where you want the data to start appearing, let's say cell D2, and like all functions in Excel, you type equal and then the function name XLOOKUP. You put a open parens because that's what you do at the beginning of a function, and then you choose what the cell that you're going to look up against. What is it? What is the common piece of data? Okay, I'm going to choose the last name field. Then I'm going to hit comma, and my next thing is I have to decide what field I'm going to search. So I go into my other into my other tab, which could be a whole other file, not just another tab on the same file, and I select the column that I'm going to be looking at. In this case, I'm going to pick all of column B on my addresses tab. So first parameter you put after XLOOKUP is the thing is the cell that you're checking against, which in my case I was checking against cell C2 because that was the first one with someone's last name. I then go to the tab or file that I want to search, and I select the column to search. Now, then the third thing I got to put in, I only need these three if that's as far as I want to go. It are the columns I wish to return to get back as a result. So I'm going to highlight these last three columns here. I hope this comes through, but I'm highlighting three columns, and I'm going to now hit a close parens, and that's my X lookup. So so that hopefully you can see that with my X lookup here, I have gotten three fields worth of data: the person's email address, their gender, and their IP address. But it really could have been any data. This is a big improvement over VLOOKUP, where you had to do one cell at a time. It's also a big improvement over VLOOKUP because there are fewer parameters you have to put. Um, but we could even take this a step further. Um, as I said, you can decide what to have it say if it doesn't find anything. So I can have it say not not found, right? And obviously it found this one, but if I mess with the data, now it will say not found because it didn't find it, right? Um, Similarly, what if I wanted to not have to be an exact match? Well, if instead of putting if in the first parameter I just put something with a wild card, like let's say I want to see all last names that begin with S, so I put S asterisk, and then for my fifth parameter, I choose a match mode of 2, which is wild card. Then it will find the first thing on your list that meets the criteria. Um, And this may go without saying, but obviously you're not going to do this to just one cell at a time. So you can copy and paste it down however many rows you have. Now, actually, in this case, it's repeating and repeating
Hmm.
the same thing because I'm having it look for S wildcard, and it's not looking for the exact and the first thing and it's just repeating the first one that it found. Um, but if you're having it do an inexact match against the last name or whatever the data field is, you can get things. You can even get numbers that are next higher or lower. But the important thing to remember is XLOOKUP is your friend. You can use it instead of VLOOKUP, and you can and if you've never heard of VLOOKUP, don't if you use Excel, don't worry about it. Learn XLOOKUP instead, unless you're using an old Excel. If you're using the current one that's been updated, you will have XLOOKUP. If you're using a different spreadsheet tool like Google Sheets, they don't have XLOOKUP yet, and I don't know if they will because I don't know if that's something proprietary that only Microsoft can have. Um, but it is definitely a great tool to have, and we will have in a couple of days a very detailed tutorial on how to use it on tomshardware.com.
That is pretty intense there. The amount of capability in very little work, and not having to
Right. It,
know syntax, because with functions like we saw with a function, you get code complete. IntelliSense works in Excel now, so it tells you what all the parameters are as you go, as opposed to having to do it in like the SQL language, or the thing
right.
from Microsoft's App Center diagnostic stuff, where there's a whole its own weird language with pipes and things. This doesn't require learning syntax. It teaches you as you go, which I think is pretty great.
Right, right. I mean, I think that's good of Excel, good of Microsoft to make it easy for you to see what you have to enter. Um, and these are functions I use VLOOKUP all the time. I'll now be using this a lot, provided that it's in Excel rather than in if I'm using Excel rather than Google Sheets. I'd like to see this in Google Sheets, which I use a lot. But it just happens all the time that people are sending me data where there's disparate things, a list of articles in one, and I got to go get traffic for it in another, or a list of authors in one and a list of articles in another. Things like that. Um, it just happens all the time, and so uh, you know, learn these features, and you will be indispensable at your job, even if you think that even if you don't know that think that spreadsheeting is a big part of your job. If you work for any company, you in an office, you probably are doing a fair amount of spreadsheet work, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Obviously, for me, I live in databases which are very similar, which is why that's where my mind keeps going to. But without having to have all the overhead of a database, this gives a lot of really quick joining capabilities, and I'm already thinking of places where where this kind of thing could make a day a little better. So, and I don't even live in that space, and I'm already placing.
Right.
So yeah, I totally understand.
Because people are constantly giving you data in a spreadsheet format. I mean, if you want to if you use Google Analytics to track web traffic, for example, that's something I do all the time.
Hmm.
And then you want to download that, it gives it to you as a spreadsheet or a CSV.
See, and then for me, my default behavior, because my brain thinks in databases, is to import it into a database to build applications on it. But if you're just trying to, like you said, if you're just trying to compare data real quick, this makes that process way easy. That's a great feature. And you said you're going to be publishing a detailed how-to?
Yes, we're publishing a detailed how-to on Tom's Hardware. By the time you hear or see this, it may very well be there. So go to tomshardware.com.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate it. I know you had a little concern that it might be a boring topic or something, but I don't think so. I think it's a great topic. I love this. And as somebody who lives outside of spreadsheets, even I'm seeing places where this is useful. So I definitely, even I appreciate the information.
Yep. And
so,
if you have, and I'll just throw this in, if you are not using the latest Excel or you're using a different spreadsheet app entirely, we also have an article on VLOOKUP, which works almost as well, but is a little bit less functionality, doesn't do the wildcards, only gets one column at a time, things like that.
So I guess doing the one column at a time, the example that you showed that had it brought back 3 columns of data, you would have had to have done it 3 times. One to compare each column. And okay, got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And in that you have to use column numbers, not column names. So you got to know how many columns over. The column you're searching against has to be the leftmost column on the sheet. It can't be in the middle of the sheet. So, XLOOKUP just improves upon these limitations a lot.
Sure. So useful but limited, and this one removes a lot of that. Cool. Well, I definitely appreciate it. I am going to be messing with this while the episode is rendering tonight. So I as always, I appreciate it, and I look forward to whatever we talk about next.